Hi everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. I'm gonna try to get here. All right, so if you are new to my channel, this is gonna be extremely confusing for you. You might not even wanna watch it because you're not gonna know a lot of the players involved in this, and it's not, I don't know. This is really for the people that have been here since the beginning and that know me from a channel called Non Sequitur. And I need to just speak my truth months after everything happened and just be done and move on. And first, I want to say that this has been a very confusing situation for me. Before I ever had my own following on YouTube, I was a writer on Patheos, and I had met two individuals, one named Kyle Curtis and one named Kyle Curtis and one named Steve McRae, because I ended up writing this article about a woman named Jillian Epperly who believes that cabbage basically will cure everything. And she had been slated to appear on their show, and they were going to sort of debate her about her claims that cabbage juice would cure homosexuality and cancer and AIDS and autism and reverse Down syndrome. I mean, she's a character, and it's not true, obviously. And she realized quickly that she was walking into hostile territory and decided to cancel. And I had been covering her on my column because I, at the time, was doing a lot of stuff with pseudoscience. And I noticed that she started sort of freaking out about her cancellation, and she was talking about this channel. And I just sort of wrote about it, and it ended up her getting banned from Facebook for being using homophobic slurs. And they saw me. So Kyle and Steve, who had that channel, reached out to me afterwards, and they were like, "Oh, we saw your article, thanks." And then they both had talked with me about maybe coming on their channel and sort of talking about it. And I agreed. And so I don't even remember how much longer it was after that. I was a guest on the Non Sequitur, and I talked about Jillian and all the other kind of redonkulous people that I was covering at the time. And then I don't even know, within a month maybe, Kyle had asked me, like, I was on the show like two more times within a span of a couple weeks, and then he reached out to me and he asked me if I wanted to maybe co-host once a week a show called The Smoking Nun, where we would maybe do like news and talk about like a current story, whether it was crime or pseudoscience or something sort of relevant in what society, I guess. I don't even know how to explain it. So I agreed. I agreed to do that. And so that started, and I had no experience on YouTube. And so I started, and I don't even know how many shows we did. It was probably less than 20, maybe 10 or 12 total. And during that time, we were supposed to do it once a week, but it consistently got canceled. He did a lot of traveling. He was in Ohio to see his ex-boyfriend a bunch. There was always sort of something why we couldn't do the stream. I never really knew when it was going on. I didn't know. It was very disorganized. But I was grateful for having the opportunity to learn, and there was this really awesome producer of the show. His name is Dave. He taught me like everything I know about how to stream and how to run my streams and how to organize my streams and everything. And I was like, that was probably like the most valuable friendship I earned out of that. He is an amazing guy, and I haven't talked to him in months, and I feel really bad about that. And I am sorry, Dave, if I didn't talk to you or didn't hear what you had to say. I was very confused. And I wanted to make that very clear right now. Anyways, Kyle and Steve started having all of these issues, and I was not part of the show. I didn't own the channel. I didn't get paid for my work. I didn't get any kickbacks or anything, nothing. And so I didn't know any of the inner workings. Initially, when I asked Kyle, who owned the channel. He said it was a partnership between him and Steve. And then as the months went on and more, I would say Steve and Kyle weren't seeing eye to eye on things. And I would hear about different arguments and different things that would happen. And it was very dramatic, and there was always something that was going on between them. And I would just say, well, who owns the channel? Like, could you separate? Because I honestly had no idea. I wasn't there when it began. And he's changed from saying that it was owned by Steve to that it was his channel and that Steve didn't really do anything, which I thought was okay. But I thought you guys both owned it. But then he said, no, like, I'm the channel owner. This is my channel. I can get rid of it. And then that's when it sort of started with him being like, I'm done. We're separating. This is over. That created a mass hysteria. And I was not close with Steve. I didn't really know. I mean, I'd been on like a couple streams with him, but I didn't talk with him very much. Steve and I have very different points of view, and politically and socially, and I mean, nothing against Steve. It's just like we just weren't really like besties, I guess you should say. And Kyle and I really got along and had a lot in common. And so I did most of it with Kyle because I did a show with Kyle, and that's sort of how it worked. I didn't participate in the show on the other days that I wasn't on there. I honestly didn't really watch the channel a lot because it had a lot of the same content every single week. Like, they always did like a Flat Earth night fight where they fought with flat earthers, which I thought was cute at first, but then it was like I couldn't listen to the same fights over and over and over again. And more and more people started having problems with Non Sequitur, sort of like who they put on the channel, whether it was some guy that was a white supremacist, or people talking about ethnostates, or how the people in chat treated or talked about guests that were on the show. Some of the female guests were very disheartened on how people spoke about them, and I also took some of that heat too. It was a lot of guys that watched the channel, and a lot of them didn't think I was very smart. They thought I was pretty stupid. I saw a lot of really nasty comments, but I just sort of like was like, whatever, it's YouTube, who cares, right? But other female guests were very like upset about that, and they spoke out about it, and then that created a divide with some of the other YouTubers that had smaller atheist channels. And it just, there's like always something that was going on, and I was always very on the outside looking in. I spoke to Kyle like once a week right before we went on our live. We would speak before we would do our show and for a few minutes after, and then after that it wasn't like I talked to him again the next week. So it was very business, I guess is what you can say. So it's, I hope all of this is making sense. So in June, things just came to a head on their channel. And at the time, Kyle was very adamant that he wanted to separate from Steve. And I was supportive because he seemed really beat down and just like not happy with the direction things were going. And I had witnessed a lot of the arguments that they had had and a lot of the streams that they had had to like clean up different things that had happened on Twitter. And I was naive and new to YouTube, and my own channel was just starting to take off. And this was in June. I started uploading content on my YouTube channel in March, even though I've had the account since last October. I actually started my account because of what I did with Non Sequitur. So my channel didn't have any content on it until March. But then by June, I was starting to get a following, and I wasn't doing as many streams with them. And so I was kind of separated from it. I was never really in the inner circle. I was never like besties with any of the people on there. I was very much kind of on the outside looking in. I never really felt like I was part of the club. I don't know. That's just my own doing. I'm not a groupie person. I don't have I'm just an introvert, let's just say. So anyways, they have this divide. And then Steve apparently gets really upset because he says that Kyle has never paid him, and they've been having this channel for all of this time, and he says that Kyle's never paid him. And then I talked to Kyle, and Kyle tells me that he has the money, but there's like all of these other issues that are going on for why he's not paid him yet, and he blamed it on Steve not wanting the money because of something to do with some medical benefits that he was trying to get from the government, and that if he got paid, he would go above the limit. And that, when he told me that, I was like, well, that would be fraud. And then he said, yeah, it is fraud. And so I was told that the reason why he wasn't paid was because Steve was basically trying to like hide money from the government to be getting aid, right? And I have a child that has aid, that gets Medicaid, and so obviously I'm very sensitive to that, and I think it's like crappy if people take advantage of the system. And so with the information that he had given me and a lot of like text messages that maybe were out of context, I believed him. And I didn't have a reason not to believe him because I didn't know Steve as well. And Kyle, I had felt up until that point, hadn't lied to me. And so I was very vocal on Twitter, and I said, well, what you're doing is trying to defraud the government by getting these services, and you're trying to defraud the VA, or you're trying to defraud. I didn't know who he had these benefits with. I just knew that Kyle was telling me that he was trying to defraud them, and so I believed him wrongly, I admit. And he said that he had the money, and they were very clear that they had the money, and they were very like adamant that he would get paid. And he said he had everything like in an account, and it was all ready, and he had books, and he was going to give all of that to Steve. And then, so that all happened like mid-June, I think. By July, early July, I started getting a lot of flack for that comment I made about the fraud. And I was getting a lot of heat on Twitter, and people were really angry at me about that. And I still, at this point, believed Kyle. So, but it was getting really intense to the point where I wanted to separate myself from it because I didn't want to be connected to anything if there was any sort of fraud from either one of them. I didn't want to be in the middle of it because I had never been paid for any of my work with them, and I just wanted to let it die down. And so I tried to just sort of block everything on Twitter. I didn't watch streams. I didn't watch a lot of the videos. I didn't really know what was going on. If people would bring it up to me, I didn't really respond. I tried to stay as out of it as I could after those initial couple weeks. And I, at the time, wrongly believed that the statement about Steve defrauding the government or something caused one of his followers, I can't remember what her name is, Cheshire or something, to create a fake account. And so I thought incorrectly that they had created this account and they were emailing, and whoever did this, it really did happen. This account was created on Twitter. They created an email in my likeness, and they began emailing some of my colleagues or business connections and like pretending to be me. And I thought that was coming from Steve's camp because it happened at the exact same time. Now, it could have been someone that was like a supporter of Steve or like a troll, like supporting Steve doing this to me. I believed it was either Steve or someone connected to him or Cheshire, but they've told me that's not true. So at the time, I sent a message to Kyle and I told him I'm going to need to separate from Non Sequitur for a bit, and this was on July 2nd. Steve's crew is out of control. They stole my own intellectual property and created a Twitter account. They've created an email account with my company name, and they're emailing my affiliates and pretending to be me. And he said, alrighty. So they had emailed one of my business partners named Jennifer and were posing as me, trying to find out about writing for them, almost like as though they were going to submit things in my name, which is like really freaky if you think about it. And they had created an entire like Gmail account, and they still have this entire Twitter account. And they still post things about me, and I am blocked by them, which is weird. They talk about me nonstop on this Twitter account, and I blocked them, but they still continue to talk to me. I mean, to this day, they are still tweeting about me on this account, and it's called, I think, Without Any Crystal Balls or something. I don't even know. And it's like, it's very close to what my Twitter handle is, so it would easily confuse someone. And they created a Gmail account that would confuse people too, and it would look like it's coming from me. And so when that started to happen, I told Kyle I didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And so then about a week later, he sort of like reached out to me and he said, I'm going to miss you tonight, because we were going to that would have been the night we do a stream. And I was like, I felt bad, you know, like I felt like, oh God, I really want to be there for my friend. Like I should just do this. And so I asked him like if everything was cool, and he told me that everything was fine. So these might be out of order. Hold on a second. So he said, we had a meeting on Friday, came to some agreements, and I said, yeah, what was the conclusion? And he said, Steve will get half up leading up to the break off of non sequitur, and it will stay with me. So that he said the channel would stay with him. Sorry, you guys. So it was after he said that he had... I'm sorry. I have these all in order. I don't know why these backtrack don't work. This is so stressful for me. Like, I'm very nervous doing this, and I know people aren't going to believe me, and I hate that part of the internet, because people will say that, oh, you're doing this for this reason, and I honestly have no other motive, but I don't like lying. I don't like it when people lie to me, and that's really what it comes down to. So he reaches out to me and he says, like, I'm gonna miss you tonight. And I say, okay, yeah. So like, and then he tells me like everything comes, they've agreed on everything. And I said, isn't that what you offered from the beginning? And he said, yeah, but after the lawyer went through everything, Steve didn't have any standing to make any demands. And I said, did he have a lawyer? Did he agree to shut up about you and your co-host? And he said, he's got to, or no deal for him. And I said, good. My God, he's been on a tear. He's hosted an entire show about me, because at this point he was very upset with me. So it was after that he told me that everything was settled. I did the stream with him, and then on that stream, and I don't have screenshots of this, he told me that I asked him again about the meeting, and he said, well, it was me and it was Steve, and it was my lawyer and his power of attorney, and we all sat down, and my lawyer went point by point, and he basically showed Steve everything about what was going on, and Steve didn't have a leg to stand on, and so Steve is gonna stop doing this. I'm gonna give him 50% of everything, and it's gonna be over. And so it was after that, where he had told me again that it was over, that I like, someone tagged me on something on Twitter, and I was like, well, you guys, like, it's over, like, it's already done. And it was like innocent on my part, because I literally believed that it was over. And then people started like tagging me and be like, what are you talking about? There was no attorneys. What are you doing? What's going on? And then at that point I was extremely upset, because I was like, holy crap, did he lie to me? And so let's see if I can get this back. Okay, so he said he's lying. If you notice, I have a stream to set up that tomorrow. So I had said to him, like, I thought you like got all this settled, and I said I didn't see that, and he said there's a link. And then I said, what was that from? I thought the stream was tonight. I'm confused. You told me you met with your lawyer and Steve. These are so out of order. Okay, sorry. This was the first one. It says, Steve is saying you guys never met with lawyers. He was on Reds, which was another channel, bitching, and people are back. And I thought you said this was done. And then he told me that, yeah, he's lying. If you notice, I have a stream set up to expose that tomorrow. And I said I didn't see that. And then I reached out to him again, and I said, I thought your stream was tonight. I'm confused. You told me you met with your lawyer and Steve. And then I said, I'm confused. You told me that you met with your lawyer and Steve in a group call. You told me that your lawyer presented him with info. And then last night you said he hadn't met the lawyer. And that was after he did the stream where he said, like, oh, no, there hadn't been a lawyer, and he's never met my lawyer, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, not with my lawyer, Steve's lawyer, which made no sense to me. Why would Steve's lawyer present information to him that would make Steve have to bend to Kyle's demands? That was like my first red flag that something was wrong here. And I said, you said you all met together. And he said, we all did. I was alone. And he said, but I asked you if your lawyer was there, and you said yes. Maybe I misunderstood what you were asking. My attorney didn't want me to meet with them in the first place. He said, it was me, Steve, and Red, Dave, and Steve's power of attorney. And I said, you didn't mention anyone else was there, just the four of you. He said, Dave didn't say a word. I think it's funny now Steve has been instructed not to comment. And I said, why doesn't your attorney just reach out? And he said he's going to once it's ready to be sent over. He has to verify that with medical, and then with the contact his power of attorney related to like his medical stuff with taxes. And he says, until then, there's nothing to discuss. And I said, verify what medical? And he said that Steve reported he had additional income coming in. And this is where I was like, this makes no sense, because my son gets Medicaid and you don't have to report future earnings. You only report what you've made. And I said, but he didn't get paid. He didn't have anything to report. And he said, but he's wanting the funds that are accrued during that time, and he received benefits that were determined based on that income he reported he had coming in. And if I just turn that over and he didn't report it, there's an issue, which is actually not true. If that were to happen and he were to report it, if for some reason it would come back that he weren't eligible, then the state would go to Steve, not to Kyle, and ask for the money or whatever they had to pay during that time. And that happens a lot, especially like with Social Security and other benefits. Like if it was an error in payment, the government will always come back and be like, you owe us money. And it would not have been Kyle's responsibility at all. As long as Kyle reports his taxes, what he gives to Steve is not his issue. And so that was sort of another red flag for me. And I said, but if he didn't receive the income that accrued during that time, he can't report it. You can't report money that you haven't received. State benefits are not approved based on future income. It's based on previous year's taxes. And he said he can report additional income streams with an average amount. The issue is the money he wants was made during that time. It was just being held by me, and the taxes were being paid by me. And I said, so you paid taxes on the income? And then he sent me something to do with the SSI, and I said, okay, so are you worried you were going to get in trouble for this? And he says, no, because the responsibility to report those lies with him, I have plausible deniability, which again makes no sense. Like if he's saying that it doesn't, he told me like if he's not worried that it's going to come back to him, then why couldn't he just give Steve the money, and why couldn't he have his attorney reach out to him? And I said, so if the liability falls on him, then why not just send the money? I'm confused. And he said, because my lawyer wants to be more than certain it can't come back to me, because now I'm aware of the intent. So that was really one of the last times I spoke to Kyle, because after that, I reached out to him and I told him, Jesse, my moderator, Jesse Barrett, will attest that this is exactly what I did. After I had that conversation with Kyle, I messaged her, because there is nobody I trust more on my team than Jesse. She has become one of my very good friends, and I trust her when I tell her things. And I told her what was going on. I shared the screenshots, and she was just like, this is really messed up. And I said, I think he's lying. I don't think he has the money. And I didn't know, right? And so I just kept believing that he would pay him. And I just kind of at this point stopped really talking to him. I wasn't connected to him in terms of my channel. I didn't really want anything to do with it, because it all seemed super messy, and I am not the kind of person, I'm the kind of person that pays everything on time. I've always had a really good credit score. I try my best to always pay things off in advance. I am very if I owe you money, I'm going to pay you back. If you owe me money, I'm going to expect you to pay me back. I try to follow very much the letter of the law. The only time that's ever happened with us in terms of financial stuff was my husband had to foreclose on his house in 2012, but literally everyone in the United States was foreclosing on their houses at the time. So that isn't really that big of a deal. But beyond that, it's I didn't want to be associated with this, because that's not my moral. I really value truth and honesty. And so I didn't really talk to him very much. And I think the last time I talked to him was a couple weeks ago, after he did a stream where he was going to say goodbye to the Non Sequitur show. And I think I texted him in the beginning of August, very briefly, like very brief. And then again, August 28th, there was a very brief communication, and that's the last time I've talked to him. And I haven't really talked to anyone else connected to it either. I haven't talked to Shannon. I haven't really talked to Casey. I haven't really talked to Godless Engineer. I have never really had a relationship with Jimmy, who's the friendly atheist who's connected to this too. So I just, like, I was never part of that club. I was always on the outside of it. So when I sort of walked away, I walked away from everyone by, like, not on purpose. It just kind of happened that way. And my content is very different than what they all do. And so it kind of just like made sense, if that makes sense. This is so confusing. So, with all of that said, I started getting tagged again with all of this Amber stuff, right? People kept tagging me, and like Steve was saying stuff, and I was really confused. And I was like, someone tagged me about some sort of like, he's suing someone or some sort of lawsuits going on. And so I ended up and I didn't know anything about anything. Like, I didn't know anything about lawsuits. I didn't know anything about anything. Like, I have no lawsuits out against me. I hadn't followed his page. I hadn't blocked on Twitter. I wasn't watching. I mean, he hosted videos where he talked about me. I didn't watch them. I just felt like if anything, he can say what he wants about me and it's fine. Like, I'm not going to get in the middle of this. Like, let him be mad at me. I don't care. I'm going to move on. But then I ended up going to his Facebook page because I kept getting tagged and stuff related to him. And I was like, all right, I have to see what's going on, why I'm continuing to get tagged. This is 3 months later. And I ended up finding, he posted like a Google Drive to the lawsuit that he filed against Kyle in August, I think on August 23rd in Guilford County, North Carolina, which outlined all of the stuff related to the demise of Non Sequitur, their partnership, and like how he hasn't been paid, hasn't talked to an attorney, and everything that I had felt in July, reading the documents that he made against Kyle made sense. That what Kyle told me wasn't true, and that he had misled me, and then I had defended Kyle and then accused Steve of something based on statements made by Kyle, and then I felt terrible because I trusted Kyle and I believed Kyle when he told me that this is what was going on. But once I saw what was in the lawsuit between Kyle and Steve, and knowing that still to this day he hasn't seen the books or talked to the attorney, and for the record, I've never believed there was an attorney. I never bought the story that the attorney wouldn't reach out, because I've been involved with enough of this stuff to know that mediation doesn't require documents being sent over. It's, his attorney should have reached out right away. Which led me to believe that he had been stalling, because I don't know why. I cannot speculate. I just think that he probably spent the money. During the time that he was making that money, he did go on a lot of trips. He bought a lot of stuff. He wore a lot of nice suits. He went out a lot. So I don't know. And I don't know. Like, I just don't think the money's there anymore. I think he probably paid his rent. Who knows? Anyways, I felt terrible at that point. So then I put those tweets out this morning, and then I reached out to Steve and I said, listen, I just want to talk to you. I'm sorry. I feel like I was misled. And then Steve was basically like, I never believed that you were part of this. I believe that he lied to you and that you believed him. And because he was your friend, you stuck up for him and you trusted your friends. And I said, that's exactly what happened. And I apologized for the statements I made. I said I felt terrible. And then Steve showed me a ton of evidence from his side, which basically proved that what Kyle had been telling me was completely inaccurate. He even told me that Kyle had told me that meeting that they'd had where he said the lawyers were, he said that Steve had requested that meeting. But I saw screenshots from Kyle to Steve that basically Kyle insisted on that meeting, wanted that meeting, didn't want anyone there, only wanted it to be them. So it wasn't like Kyle was being requested to have the meeting, it was the other way around. And then I saw a lot of stuff about business things where he was like alleging to maybe be signing documents, legal documents for Steve. just a lot of stuff that like appeared very shady. And I don't know if this was like the intention the whole time to like take the money, or maybe it was once the money started coming in, he might have intended to pay Steve, but then it got to a point where he didn't have the money anymore. And so then this web of lies started. I don't know. Like I said, I never saw the books and I was never paid. What I did was wrong because I believed a friend, and anyways, I believed him. I don't know what Kyle's motives were. I don't know why he didn't pay him. I don't know why he doesn't have an attorney, or he didn't give the attorney's name. I can only say that, like, based on what I saw, I truly believe that Kyle misled all of us. And if you have supported Kyle, and like, I don't think this hurts me so much because I valued our friendship so much. And like, I was so invested in that show because of like my connection and like doing the work with them. So I can't even imagine what it's like for the daily viewer if you have come to this end of this and realize that maybe I have something. I don't know. I gave you the screenshots so that you can see that I stopped trusting him, and none of the things that he said to me made sense. The evidence that Steve showed me supported my hunch that he was lying, and now I have to just say, I'm sorry to you, Steve, for making those statements. I would have never made those statements if I had known or had the right information or had trusted you to begin with. I didn't know anything, and I just followed and trusted a friend. But I'm not the kind of person that will ever just blindly stay silent or trust someone or protect someone just because they are my friend. I can't. I won't do that. I don't want to stand in that at all. I just want to say, like, I value honesty more than anything, and I feel like I was deceived, and I feel like I was lied to, and I'm sorry that, I guess if I were Steve, I would be super angry too. I have not loved how he's handled this publicly, but that's neither here nor there. I can see why he would, though, because this was tens of thousands of dollars, $25,000 to $30,000 that he doesn't have, and that's theft. So he deserves that money, and I hope he gets paid. I really do. I definitely want to just move forward. But I feel like I have to speak out because these are the people that helped me get started on YouTube, and it would be really ridiculous for me to just sweep this under the rug. And I just want Steve to know very publicly that I'm sorry, and I'm not going to talk about it anymore after this, I promise. So if you guys have comments or questions, let me know, but I will delete. I'm not going to lie. If you are going to troll me and if you are going to attack me, I will delete the comments. I don't like being called names. I've admitted what I've done, and I hope you can forgive me, and I hope you can understand that if you had a friend that you trusted and believed, that sometimes it's easy to be swayed by someone who pretty much gave you your start in your career on YouTube, and that you want to believe the best in them because of everything they did for you. That's it, you guys. Bye.